Hello and welcome to the Race Asylum YouTube channel. So we're back for another Team Tourers guide where we're going to show you the best racing lines and the best places to overtake. So hopefully it helps you out, but we'll get straight into it now then. So this week we're at the Nürburgring, so this is the GP layout, and then the longer race will be at the Nordschleife. Not going to do a guide for the Nordschleife unfortunately, just because it's a bit too long. But my main advice for that will just be keep it clean, keep it on track, and you should have a good race. Don't worry about being off the pace. It's such a difficult track that people will make mistakes, that if you can keep it on the track, you'll obviously gain from that. So we're in the Ferrari then for this guide, so we'll just come up to turn 1 now. So obviously turn 1 we're looking for that 100-metre board or the start of this curb. So you want to brake a little bit before it if possible. So, and then obviously keep your braking in a straight line, and then a late turn into this corner. Get it turned in and just dip 2 wheels into the edge of the curb there so it pulls you around. Just be careful, sometimes you can lose the back end a little bit if you get too much of that apex, so just watch out for that. Then here I don't really have a marker, it's just a little dab of brakes or a lift off. I can't quite make my mind up whether it's better to just lift or whether the dab of brakes helps. You want to get it right into that apex, and as it comes round you can then get back on the power. But again, it's very hard in this time of day with that sun to see a marker for a good exit point, so you're going to have to just practice that to try and figure out where you can get on the power, how early you can get on the power without running wide. So you can run right up onto this curb if you need to, and you want to brake before the end of this green. So use the green as the marker, but you want to brake before the end of that. And then you want to be, as you brake, you want to be turning it straight in. But you want to come in, and then you want to get up onto the curb sort of late. So you don't want to get up on the curb right here, or you're going to just come off the curb too early. So you want to come round and sort of apex here, and then get up onto the curb, and sort of follow the curb round. And when you get to the end of this curb, you can get back on the power. And then bring the car over to the right. You might need a slight lift through here, but then on the power. And then you can use all of this if you need to. Just make sure you get back on the track before the end of the green, because otherwise you will get a track limits penalty there. So sector 1 can be very difficult to get right, and can be where you lose a lot of time. So then here we want to brake just after this white line here. So we want to brake just after that white line. Just turn the car in and then get back on the power, but don't run too far out this way or you'll make this next corner difficult for you. Try and keep the car more to the middle of the track so you can get back over to the left. And then just after this curb ends, you want to be getting just a dab of brakes, and again just turn the car in, and as the car comes round, once you see that exit appearing, get back on the power and you can run off onto this curb here. So then now this hairpin you can take in a couple of different ways. So I'm using that yellow Dunlop standings sign on the right hand side. So when that just leaves the screen, getting on the brakes, and I like to come in and just hit this first apex and either keep it really close to the curb or you'll just drift out slightly, and as you drift out slightly you'll be able to bring the car back round and then just get a second apex late on and then back on the power and power out. Or the other way you can do this corner, which it'll just be preference on driving style more so than actual speed. So the other way to do it is to come in a little bit hot, so to brake that little bit later, and instead of going for that first apex, just come in that little bit later, miss that first apex, be on the brakes, get the car to rotate here in the middle of the corner and turn back for the second apex and back on the power and just hit the second apex. Just be careful here that you don't run wide, as you'll hit the gravel and slow yourself down because you're flat out from this point on, so you don't want to lose time on that exit. So here the only marker I can really think of is these tyre marks coming off the curb here, but it should be easy flat in all Group 4 cars this. So bring the car up onto this curb on the right and then turn in and just clip this curb on the inside, and then clip this curb on the inside, and you should be easy flat through there in a Group 4. So then coming up to the next corner now, we're looking for the start of the green again, but you want to brake before the start of the green. If you brake before the start of the green, if it's a little bit too early, then that's better than going deep into this corner. You can lose a lot of time going deep into this corner. You want to just clip the apex and then back on the power. Don't run too far over to the right. About here is far enough. You don't really want to be touching that curb. I don't think you can do. You can get it back across in time, but I find it just makes it a bit more difficult for you to get the car back across, because then you want to be bringing the car across to the left. And again, this is an awkward sort of marker point. There's not really anywhere, it's just sort of judgment. There's two methods again. You can either lift and turn in and just lift and let the car just cruise into the corner, or you can just have a slight tap of brake to help you, and then just let the car roll into the corner. And once you see the car angling round, get back on the power. You can touch this curb on the outside, no problem, but don't run wide onto the grass or the gravel, as it'll slow you down. And then we're flat out then all the way to the chicane. So for the chicane, we're looking for the 100-meter board, and you can brake just after it, but again, that'll be car dependent. So just after the 100-meter board, onto the brakes, down through the gears, and then you can really cut both curbs. But my advice would be, if you can literally fully cut and bounce over both like this. But my advice, if you struggle with controlling the car, one, you can either keep it in a slightly higher gear, might help settle the car, or the other option is play it a bit safer. When you come into the cut, instead of cutting that first corner, just take the first one normally like that, and miss the actual sausage part of the chicane, and then straight line this second one. You should be alright. Just be careful of losing the back end a little bit, but if you're struggling with turning, miss the first sausage and take the second one, would be my advice. So then I like to come up onto this curb now on the left to open up this track as much as you can, and that cone just at the start of the pits, so that cone there is what I like to use as a marker, braking just after that disappears off the screen. Turning the car in, I like to get nice and tight to this wall and let the car rotate round, and once it's rotated round, back on the power, powered out, and then that's a lap of this track. So we'll go through it a bit faster now then. So obviously to start with, we're looking for that 100-meter board or the start of the curb. So just braking just before it, down through the gears, cutting into that corner, back on the power as soon as we can. Bring the car over to the right, little dab of brake or a lift off, get right into this curb, and once you can see, you can come round, back on the power, braking before the end of that green, get the car turned in, up onto the curb late, and then back on the power when that curb ends. Little lift if you need it, which we probably did that time, so that might be a penalty, I'm not quite sure. And then here we're looking for the white, just braking just after the white. So see, I didn't get a penalty, so you can see how much you can use that. And then onto the brakes at the end of that curb, we just go a little bit deep there. So now we're looking for that Dunlop sign on the right. So obviously just as that goes off our screen, we want to go onto the brakes, come in for that first apex, let it just drift out a little bit, and then back for that second apex and back on the power all the way out of that corner. And then we want to get up onto this curb and turn before the tyre marks coming off the curb. And then now we're looking for the start of that green again. We want to brake just before the start of the green. Get the car turned into that apex and then back on the power, back over to the left. A little bit of dab of brakes, let the car just rotate in, and then back on the power as soon as we can. And then flat out now to the chicane where we're looking for that 100-meter board. So we want to brake just after it, just after that 100-meter board, onto the brakes, get the car turned in, cut the curb, just careful of the car as you exit that corner, up onto this curb, looking for that cone, onto the brakes, get the car turned in, try and get close to that wall, back on the power as soon as we can. So we'll try and go through that a little bit faster if we can. So coming into the first corner, we're looking for that 100-meter board or the start of the curb. So we're braking just before it, and then we just want to get turned into this apex and then down, back on the power, over to the right hand side of the track, and then just a dab of brakes or a lift, depending on what suits you, back on the power as soon as you can. See, but we're a little bit early that time. And then onto the brakes, turn in, and I said we want to cut this curb late, That's going to be way too much, so we'll slow off there. So I'll just cut ahead to this next lap. I'll show it you once more fast. Unfortunately, that one didn't go too well. So let's try this again now then. So obviously turn 1, we're looking for the start of that curb and that 100 metre board. So braking just before it. Get down into that apex, get the car turned, back on the power and bring the car over to the right hand side of the track. A little dab of brakes, keep it onto that apex. Once you know you're round, get back on the power. Looking for the end of that green just before it. Get turned in, up onto this curb, but not too much. Back on the power as soon as you can. Slight lift through that section, so you don't run too wide, and then back onto the track before the end of the green. And then we're looking for that white line, so just brake it just after the start of that white line. Bring the car around, back over to the left, brake at the end of the curb. Again, we've just gone a little bit deep there, but we managed to save it and get back on the power, so we would have lost a bit of time there. So now I'll try and show you the deeper method in. So we're going to brake a little bit later into this corner now then. So we're just going to brake that little bit later, run it deep, and then back onto the power sooner for the better exit. Not my preferred choice of line, but it does work, so it's all about finding what's comfortable for you. See, we just missed that apex, but still we're easy flat out through there, so that should be no problems. And then onto the brakes, back onto the power at the apex, bring it over to the left, slight dab of brakes, let the car rotate, back on the power as soon as we can. And then on the run down to the chicane, we're looking for that 100 metre board. And then braking just after that 100 metre board. Just cut the curb, and then bring it up onto the curb on the left now. Looking for that cone, braking, getting the car turned in, keeping it tight. Once it's rotated round, back on the power and powered out. So that's a lap of the Nürburgring GP layout. So they weren't the best couple of laps, but hopefully you get the gist from that. There's slightly different lines you can take. I think in this car, mid 203s is definitely possible, or in the current track conditions anyway. Obviously race 1 is set to random, but we'll just go through some overtaking points now then. So turn 1 is obviously the first obvious place to go for it. Obviously get a good run out that final corner and moves can be gone for. Be very careful here. You want to defend the inside, but if you take the inside here, when you then turn into the corner, you can really unsettle the car, so just beware of that. But you can also go around the outside here. You think it wouldn't be possible with it being so tight, but the way the corner is, as long as you don't get run out wide, you can actually stick it on the outside there, and if you manage to get a good exit, you'll be on the inside of the car for this next corner, and they might have to back out. So like I said here, if a car does get on your inside to here, I would advise just backing out and filtering behind them, because you want to sort of follow through here. You go too wide through here, you're going to lose a lot of time for both of you by doing it. So my advice would be all through this section, just keep it single file, just for the best option. But obviously last lap or anything like that, you can obviously try and make moves stick here, but can be very difficult. Then if you are behind someone, look to get a good exit out of this corner. Look to turn in a little bit later and get on the power earlier. You might get the run on them down into this next corner. They will probably defend the inside, and most people will defend the inside here. If you do get the run on them, you're going to be on the outside. But you can brake that little bit later, and you can, because the road cambers slightly, you can see it cambers to the left, you can hold it on the outside of someone here. They will have the better line, but if you can just hold it, you'll have the inside into this next corner. So this is a place where you can go for moves. Just be very careful then, because you're going to be on this narrow line for this corner, so you're going to have to really turn the car in and make sure you get in, and they might try and hang it on the outside here as well. So again, just be aware, you might need to give them space on the exit of this, because they might try and hang it round the outside. It's a bit more difficult round that corner, but again, a lot of this track, the corners are cambered, so you can attempt to hang it round the outside. Just obviously remember that if you choose to be on the outside, you're always taking a risk that the other car might understeer into you, so just be wary of that. So then this is the other place where you can get a run. If you can get a good exit out of that corner, you can get the run, try and get on the inside or the outside, whichever ends up. My personal view, I'd always defend the inside and try and overtake on the inside, because I like the narrow line in, getting that first apex, just coming away from the curb slightly and then cutting back for that second apex. That's the way I like to take this corner. But if you're on the outside, try that taking it deep. Just break that little bit, and when I say a little bit later, I mean literally like 2 to 5 meters later, nothing, you know, not much at all. And just keep the car straight and don't turn in for that first corner, just turn in slightly, and then you want the car to rotate at this mid part, and when you rotate at this mid part, turn in and get on the power as soon as you can, and you might get the run on them on the exit as they swoop past you to the outside. You might be able to get the run on them, but just be wary that if you do get the run on them, this is not the easiest part to go too wide through. You will lose time if you go too wide through here, so maybe best to back out if you don't have the move fully done, because going too wide through here, you can do it and give each other space, but obviously you're probably going to have to lift. You're probably not going to be able to take it flat anymore, so just be wary of that, that if you're in a group of cars and you do that, you might lose time to those ahead. But then again here, if you've got the run out of the Schumacher S's, you can go for it down the inside here. But just be careful if you are on the outside. I wouldn't advise trying to hang it round at this corner, just because I find if you go deep, it's very easy to get pulled off the track here. But that's just me personally. You can do it, but I find that I lose quite a lot of time if I go deep at that corner. So I would advise just tucking in behind them and taking the normal line. And then your next one here is then just look to get a good exit, lift off, look to get the car turned in, and look to get on the power as soon as you can behind them, because you've got a long run all the way to the chicane now. So this is your next place to go for the move. But again, same as before, you need a really good run, because if you're not fully past them and you're still side by side, very, very difficult to go side by side through the chicane. My advice would be, stick to the racing line on the outside of the track, and if you are on the inside, personally I would back out and pull onto the racing line and go single file. I would, if it's later on in the race, yes, defend the inside. It's going to be very difficult for the person on the outside to go round you. You can give each other space through the chicane, but it's very, very difficult, so not a move I'd advise, but it's a good place to put pressure on the car in front. If you get the run, you can make it look like you're going to go for the move back to the racing line, follow them through. They might make a mistake, they might go a bit hot into the corner, pick up a penalty. So it's a very good place not to necessarily make a move, but to put pressure on the car in front and force them into a mistake. So keep that in mind, because obviously it's so narrow through there that going side by side loses loads of time, so not worth it. And then come in here, if they have made a mistake on the exit of the chicane, you might be able to get on their inside, and then obviously come round and make sure you get on the power early into turn one. But I wouldn't be going for the move at this corner unless a mistake had been made on the exit of the chicane. So that's all the places to overtake then at this track. So
let us know your thoughts
hopefully that guide's helped you out.
Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you for the next one.